If you are looking to retire in the next 10 years, then this video is for you. We're going to go over the key things that need to be top of mind for you and how you plan for your retirement. But before we get into this, if you would like to create a free retirement plan that walks you through exactly what we're going to talk about today, then I invite you to click the link in the description, create your free retirement plan, and you will be on your way in no time. So without further ado, let's dive into it. We're going to address the key things that you need to know if you're retiring within the next 10 years. No matter your portfolio balance, no matter what you have going on across your various accounts, these are the things that need to be top of mind. Number one, your retirement goals. Ultimately, everything starts here. What do you want to do in retirement? You need to be very tactical and specific around what it is that you want to do, both short-term and long-term. Like I said, everything that you do relative to your planning is going to be around these various goals that you have. Do you want to relocate in retirement? Do you want to downsize in retirement? Are you going to be spending more time with grandkids? Do you want to travel more? What hobbies are you going to pick up? Will you volunteer more? Ultimately, everything that you have going on is subject to these goals that you have in retirement. Number two, income planning. Where is your income in retirement coming from? How much income do you have? Will you be relying on your portfolio in retirement for income? What is your Social Security benefit? And if you're married, what is your combined benefit? Or will your spouse be collecting that spousal benefit? Still, what is the combined benefit for both you and your spouse? Do you have other forms of income? Maybe it's from a pension, rental income, or other passive income in retirement. Once you've identified where's your income coming from, you need to identify if you have any income gaps. And that leads us into expense planning. How much in retirement do you want to spend per month, per year? Is it $5,000, $10,000, $15,000? How much is it that you want to spend? And then, do you have enough income in retirement from either your portfolio, Social Security benefit, pension, or other income to support that monthly expense? If you don't, you have what's called an income gap. Where is the income going to come from to make up for that income gap? The difference between your income you have in retirement and the expenses you have in retirement. Number four, your investment strategy. And more than just your investments, we see these investments as the vehicle that you're going to use to help you achieve your retirement goals, both short-term and long-term retirement goals. And relative to your investments, it's more than just how you're allocated across your different accounts. We want to be very intentional on where our assets are located. Are they largely in our taxable account, our tax-deferred account, or our tax-free account? Because ultimately, this is going to impact your income in retirement. How much are you taxed? How are you taxed? Is it largely ordinary income? Or is it long-term capital gains? Or is it short-term capital gains? These are the things that we need to be mindful of relative to our investment strategy and where those assets are located. And second to that, how are we allocated across our various accounts? When we think about this, it's important to think about our withdrawal strategy. Yes, we want to be allocated relative to what we want to accomplish in retirement, but we also need to marry that with how we're going to be taking assets out of our accounts, assuming we're relying on our portfolio for income in retirement. And so are we going to use a pro rata approach where we pull from all of our accounts equally? Or are we going to use a traditional withdrawal strategy where we first pull from that taxable account, then that tax deferred, that pre-tax retirement account, and then lastly, that tax-free account? So depending on our withdrawal strategy, it's important that we have an allocation across those various accounts that properly plans for that withdrawal strategy. And this leads us into how we should bucket our assets across our various accounts depending on how we elect to pull assets out. I'm going to assume that you use the traditional withdrawal strategy. That is, again, you pull it from your taxable account first, then your pre-tax accounts, those qualified retirement accounts, and then your tax-free account, that Roth IRA, if you have one. And so when we think about this, we want to align our investment allocation using a bucket approach. Bucket number one, these are going to be funds that we need in the next 1 to 3 years. Could be up to 5 years, depending on your situation. And these need to be what we call your liquidity investments. Think things like your money market funds and CDs. This is where we want to keep the funds in bucket 1. Now, bucket number 2, this is anywhere from 4 to 10 years, again, depending on your situation. Maybe it's 5 to 10 years. And this is your defensive bucket. This bucket will be allocated to things like bonds and dividend-paying stocks. And then lastly, we have bucket number 3. Bucket number 3 is our growth bucket. These are funds that we don't need for another 10 plus years. And we're going to be allocated largely in stocks in this bucket. And now this brings us into area number 5, relative to how we plan for retirement, our withdrawal strategy and our withdrawal rate. If you have an income gap in retirement, that is, the gap between maybe your Social Security benefit and pension or other passive income and those monthly expenses, then you're likely going to have to make up for that income gap, that deficit that you have monthly with your portfolio. And if this is the case, then you want to be mindful of how much are you relying on your portfolio in a given year to fund your retirement. This is what we call the withdrawal rate. You may have heard before a 4% withdrawal rate or general rules of thumb that you should be using, but here we like to use what's called the guardrails approach. Depending on how your portfolio has done based on the market, maybe you pull out a little bit more if your portfolio has done really well. Now, if you have a down year where your portfolio is not doing as great, maybe you pull out a little bit less. You're dynamic in how you're pulling out your funds to fund your retirement relative to what the market is doing. Ultimately, this allows for a ton of flexibility relative to how you're taking income from your portfolio. And so when we think about the withdrawal strategy and the withdrawal rate, we need to be mindful of, do we run the risk of running out of money? Are we subject to longevity risk? What about sequence of returns risk? Early on in retirement, are we pulling too much from our portfolio where if there's a market downturn, we run the risk of running out of money? And so these are things that we need to properly account for. And that retirement plan that I mentioned early on in this video is just the spot to run through, what does it look like if I'm pulling out 4% or 5% or 6% of my portfolio? Is this something that I can reasonably do throughout retirement? Can my portfolio sustain this sort of withdrawal rate? And this brings us into the 6th key area of retirement planning and your plan. And that is your tax plan for retirement. You might have a good chunk of your assets in those pre-tax retirement accounts. And when you think about how am I going to pull money out of these accounts in retirement, you're probably wondering, what is the tax consequence liability going to look like come required minimum distribution age? Depending on your date of birth, that's probably at the age of 73 or 75. That said, check your date of birth and then figure out what your RMD age is. And so when you think about your tax plan, specifically as it relates to these pre-tax retirement accounts, there's a couple things that we can start to think about and potentially implement if it makes sense for your unique situation. And that is Roth conversions and qualified charitable distributions. Is this something that you should engage in? I recently just did a video on how a couple used Roth conversions to save more than $580,000 in tax-adjusted ending assets. I invite you to click the link here and watch that video. And then qualified charitable distributions. Hey, if I give to various organizations and charities anyway, maybe I look at, is there an opportunity to give from my retirement account so that I don't have to take that income and report it as ordinary income? And lastly, I'll leave you with a couple things that you should be mindful of and thinking about. What does your healthcare plan for retirement look like? And what does that cost look like? What does your long-term care plan look like? Is that something that you need to account for in retirement? What about life insurance? Have you considered getting life insurance depending on your unique situation? And what if, God forbid, you were to pass away? Do your beneficiaries know what to do, or is it properly outlined what they should do as it relates to debts or taxes or various admin costs. So guys, these are the things that you should be mindful of if you're approaching retirement and plan on retiring in the next 10 years. Again, if you want more clarity around your retirement strategy, then I invite you to click the link in the description, create your free retirement plan, and you'll be on your way in no time. And until next time, thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.